On my birthday, my sister's daughter tossed her drink on my outfit and said, "Now you look like the poor aunt everyone pities." The entire room burst into laughter, and my cheeks burned hotter than the coffee she'd just spilled. People's eyes scanned me from head to toe, whispering, smirking, enjoying my humiliation like it was part of the party entertainment. Before I continue, make sure you're following, because trust me, by the end of this story, you'll see exactly how I turned that moment into my greatest revenge. Share this so no one thinks they can get away with disrespecting you, and subscribe for more true life twists. I forced a smile, pretending the comment didn't stab me straight in the chest. My sister, Camille, didn't even scold her daughter. Instead, she leaned in and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Gianna, maybe next time you can wear something appropriate. We have an image to maintain." The words dripped with fake concern, but I could see the smug satisfaction in her eyes. I wanted to snap back, to tell her everything I'd been building in silence these past few years. But no, I wasn't ready. Not yet. She thought I was still the struggling, paycheck to paycheck Gianna she loved to mock. She had no idea about the long nights, the quiet investments, the small side hustle that had turned into something massive. "Don't worry, I'll clean this up," I said, stepping away, my hands trembling, not from shame, but from the effort it took to keep my secret under wraps. My nephew snickered as I walked past, and I caught my brother whispering something about Gianna never learning her place. Little did they know, every cruel word, every smirk, every condescending glance, was just adding fuel to a fire that was about to burn their perfect little world to the ground. And the first spark? That would come sooner than they could imagine. I came back into the living room after cleaning up, wearing a fresh dress from my bag, not expensive looking, just plain enough to keep them fooled. Camille's friends were gathered around the cake, their manicured fingers holding champagne flutes, their voices dripping with gossip. I could hear my name sprinkled between their laughs, like I was the punchline of some private joke. "Poor Gianna," one of them whispered, always showing up like she wandered in from the clearance rack. Camille smirked without denying it, pretending she didn't hear. That's how she worked, indirect humiliation, so she could play innocent if anyone called her out. The worst part? I'd once trusted her. Years ago, I even lent her money when she claimed her business was in trouble. She never paid me back, and somehow, I was the one she called irresponsible. Tonight, she was glowing. The party wasn't just my birthday celebration, she'd turned it into an opportunity to parade her wealth and success. The venue was her choice, the expensive catering was hers, and the guest list, well, it was full of people who only saw me as the family embarrassment. "Gianna," Camille's voice sliced through the chatter, "come here for a photo. We should get one of all the sisters together." I hesitated. I knew exactly what she was doing. The photo would be another way to show the contrast between her polished self and my ordinary life. But I smiled and walked over, positioning myself at the end so I wouldn't have to stand too close. As the camera clicked, her daughter piped up again, "Make sure you get Gianna's dress in the shot. It's so cute." The way she dragged out "cute" made the room chuckle. I kept smiling, but inside I was calculating. Because while they were laughing, my phone buzzed in my clutch, a notification from my bank. Another deposit. Another payment from a deal they didn't know existed. My side hustle had grown so big that, if I wanted, I could buy this entire venue outright tonight, but patience was my weapon. Let them have their moment. Because the real show was coming, and when it did, every one of them would remember exactly how they treated me on this night. And the trigger? Camille herself was about to pull it without even realizing. Dinner was served, and as I sat down, I noticed Camille had accidentally placed me at the far end of the table. Away from the main conversation, squeezed between a distant cousin I barely knew and an empty chair no one seemed eager to fill. It was her subtle way of saying I didn't belong in the center of things. She clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "Before we eat, I just want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate Gianna's birthday," she began sweetly. Before adding, "It's so inspiring to see her still pushing through, even when life hasn't exactly been generous." The table erupted in polite, awkward laughter. My cousin gave me a pitying pat on the shoulder, as if I were some charity case they'd all agreed to tolerate for the evening. I took a slow sip of water, willing myself to stay calm. She was laying the bait, and if I reacted too soon, I'd lose the upper hand. I knew Camille's pattern, she always needed to have the final word, to ensure she looked superior in front of her crowd. "So, Gianna," she continued, "what are you doing these days?" "Still working that little retail job," she said. It like little was the most accurate, humiliating description possible. Before I could respond, my brother chimed in, "She's probably still living in that tiny apartment, right? Nothing wrong with being humble, I guess." A few heads turned toward me, expecting me to blush or stammer. Instead, I smiled faintly. "I'm doing fine," I said. "Better than fine, actually." That made Camille's brows twitch. "Oh? Did something happen?" I leaned back, pretending to be casual. "You could say that." My phone buzzed again in my lap, another deal finalized. The number made my pulse quicken, but I didn't show it. The truth was, I'd been quietly building an online company for the last 4 years. At first, it was just me, a laptop, and a stubborn refusal to fail. But now? It was pulling in more money in a month than Camille's business made in a year, and she was about to find out, in the most public way possible, because what she didn't know was that one of the guests tonight wasn't here for her at all. They were here for me, and the reveal was going to hit her harder than she could ever imagine. The moment came faster than I expected. Halfway through dessert, the tall glass doors to the dining room swung open, and in walked Daniel Price, the CEO of one of the biggest real estate firms in the state. Every head turned. Camille's eyes widened, clearly shocked that someone of his stature was at my birthday dinner. He scanned the room, then his gaze landed on me. "Gianna," he said warmly, striding over and ignoring everyone else, "I'm glad I caught you. We need your signature to finalize the closing on that property." A murmur rippled through the table. Camille blinked, clearly trying to process what she just heard. "Property," she repeated, her voice almost trembling. Daniel smiled politely at her, then turned back to me. "Yes, the downtown building. Congratulations, by the way. Not many people can buy an entire complex in cash." Forks froze midair. Glasses stopped clinking. You could have heard a pin drop. My brother's jaw literally hung open. I took the folder from Daniel and signed it right there, sliding the papers back with a steady hand. "Thanks, Daniel," I said. "I appreciate you working around my schedule." Camille's voice cracked. You bought a building?" I met her gaze, my smile finally real. "Several, actually. The one Daniel's talking about is just for my company headquarters." Gasps. Whispers. A couple of her friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "My company," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air like a bomb about to go off. "The one I've been building for the last 4 years while everyone thought I was struggling." Camille's daughter shrank in her seat, suddenly fascinated by her dessert. My brother looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "And Camille?" She sat frozen, her perfectly curated image cracking right in front of her guests. What none of them knew yet was that this wasn't the end of the reveal. I had saved the biggest shock for last, and it was going to hit right where it hurt most. I set my fork down and leaned forward, my voice calm but carrying enough weight to silence the entire table. "You know, Camille," I began, "it's funny how people love to define you by where you were, not where you are." She tried to smirk, to regain control, but her eyes kept darting toward her guests, who were now whispering in low tones. I continued, "4 years ago, I was broke. I was working that little retail job you love to mention. And yes, I lived in that tiny apartment you think is so pathetic. But what you didn't see, because you were too busy mocking me, was that I was investing every spare dollar. I worked nights, I studied markets, I took risks you wouldn't have the courage to take. And I didn't need to post it on social media for validation." I saw my brother shift uncomfortably. Camille's daughter stared at her lap. "My company now employs over 100 people, I said, my tone steady but sharp. "We operate in 3 states. And the new headquarters I just bought? It's twice the size of your boutique." That hit her, I could see it in the way her lips tightened. But I wasn't done. I pulled an envelope from my clutch and slid it across the table toward her. "By the way, Camille, this is the repayment for the money I lent you years ago. With interest." Her fingers trembled as she opened it and saw the check. Gasps went around the table when they caught the amount. It was more than enough to cover the loan. In fact, it was enough to sting her pride, and, I added, leaning back in my chair, "I also just purchased the building your store is in." The room erupted in murmurs. Camille's face went pale. You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious, I said. Your lease is safe, for now. Consider it my way of reminding you that respect costs nothing. But disrespect can get very expensive. Silence. No more jokes, no more whispers. Just the sound of Camille swallowing her pride in front of everyone she'd tried to impress. I picked up my drink and stood. Thank you all for coming. It's been enlightening. And as I walked out of the venue, the same guests who had laughed at me hours earlier now watched with wide eyes, realizing the poor aunt they pitied was the wealthiest person in the room, and the one holding the keys to their future.